Welcome one, welcome all inside the Prospect Planner. That's right, part of the Iowa Baseball Network. Thanks again for joining along as we go in the pursuit of the college game beyond the baseball field, from experiences, tips, tricks, and more that might help on what the crazy journey is of being recruited, right? Of course, there's no one single right answer, but we help to give you some experiences that have helped and really some insights to look at as you go forward, as you, your son or daughter, try to get that collegiate experience. And again, this Prospect Planner brought to you by the great folks at RDA Financial. Not only are they great with, excuse me as I'm choking up here, great with money, they're great with finance, they're great with the community as well. One of the things that I really drew me was the fact that they are very community-based. And they are there ingrained, ready in all types of activities. So, hey, they're your neighbors, they're your friends, and everything in between. So, hey, if you want the best experience, got to check them out at RDA Financial today. Check them out online. Give them a call. However you can make that happen, just do so today. So, again, this is the pursuit of the college game off the field. And we've given it quite a bit. We've had a really good year, a couple years actually, about going through the experiences, what it means, the different, from different interviews that we've had to the locations, the on-site locations we've been to. It really is, we try to give that holistic view. And so we're going to do so again as we dive into the 2024 off season. I guess technically the 2024-25 season. So here we go. Nonetheless, we're diving into it, and we get to do so with our great friend Chad Ericson of RDA Financial as he joins us here on the other line. And Chad, appreciate it. I know that it's been a little bit here, and I know that we've all had to regroup, get ready, get set, but glad to be back on the horse here.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. It's been a little while. Glad we got a chance to chat face to face at the 3A, 4A venue, which was incredible. You know, they did a fine job in Cedar Rapids. Colonels were hosting us, and man, they did a great job. And what a great ballpark! And I know the kids enjoyed it. Win or lose, it was a good experience, and so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I one thing here, quick before we dive in. Again, this show, ladies and gentlemen, will be, we'll talk a little bit about turf field versus natural grass field, just a little bit, and then we'll dive into kind of the progression, right? The big thing about this is the progression of where you're at right now, things to look out for, and more. Plus, we'll go ahead and end it off with a preview of what we might be seeing coming up next week on a Prospect Planner. But, Chad, I wanted to get your take here. The Crusaders had the farthest to travel to the state tournament in 3A, 4A than anybody else. And, we've had different venues. There has been Dwayne Banks Field. There's been, Principal Park in Des Moines. But, gosh, it was a long drive for Sioux City fans. But, in the end, it's the title game for them, so it was a great run. How was the experience for, not just for you, but all those that you could see? What was the experience like as the Iowa High School Athletic Association tries to search for either we come back to the Colonel Stadium or go somewhere else? How would you kind of rate the experiences you guys have had from the longer distance?
Well, certainly it posed some issues. Was more difficult for our fan base to get over there, and throughout the week. And we had a nice crowd for the championship, and we had nice crowds throughout. But it was a lot different when we're playing Wahlert Catholic, we're playing North Polk. They've got a shorter trip to get there than we do. It's difficult, and it's the summer, so it's not like the school year is happening and people are chartering buses and things like that. Those things logistically are more difficult to do, I think. And but we had great fan support there. But you're right, it was a long trip, and I think that impacted the fans a little bit. People had to make choices about how long they were going to stay, how many games they were going to go to. We were there all week. A number of the families were there all week. Fortunately, we were able to make that happen. Um, so that was fun and interesting, but it made for a very long week. It would have been. I know some folks went back and forth at times because they had things that they had to do. That made it difficult on those families. But as far as venue goes, field were wonderfully maintained. Staff, everybody was very helpful. Um, and so it was a really good week at the ballpark, and I think everybody enjoyed it, made a lot of great memories in the end. And even though Heelan came up on the short end in the championship, I think uh, Sean Schaefer, our shortstop, he said it best after the game, and people were hugging and high fiving, and he said, you know what, we got to play all the games. And I think that's great perspective. That really stuck out to me when I heard that he had said that, and hats off to him for having a great attitude and thinking, hey, this is a great opportunity. We got to play all the games, and very few teams get to do that. Obviously, only 8 teams in the state get to say that, hey, we played all the games this year. So,
It,
that's great perspective.
and truly, Heelan and North Polk were the only two to say that they went truly all games. Right? There was no other games past the state title game. So again, fantastic seasons, and cannot wait. I'm already itching to get this next season underway, and I know we got to go through the off season. There's other sports, yada yada. We'll get there, Chad. We'll get back to it eventually, but as for now, I did want to go ahead and just say that, man, it was a great venue, and I had really appreciated it. And I know that it was kind of a they were scrambling to find something at one point. So kudos to the Athletic Association and the Colonels for coming together, because this it was an experience. They did a great job, absolutely phenomenal. So really appreciated that. But let's get back onto the business side of things here, Chad. And I wanted to touch something up, you and I here, and again, we'll get an article out there in the coming weeks here about this. But so there's a topic that I didn't initially think was as big as it is now, and that is the type of field that we're playing on, right? Primarily turf versus natural grass. Now there is a combination in there. You see a little bit of that, but there's a lot of conversation as to whether teams should go turf. And again, weather being the primary driver in that conversation, it is truly what's moving the needle for a lot of programs. And you're seeing that you're seeing a lot of teams go that way. Less and less natural fields in existence than ever before. I wanted to get your take here. The conversation, Chad, has been different. And I just want to get your take on how this conversation has really changed. It's been different because I remember, even 10 years ago, I don't remember this being as deep of a conversation. And I know we're just kind of getting into it more at the high school level. I know it wasn't as available then, but I think it has more to do with just availability. There's a lot of factors that go in, and there's a lot that programs, athletic directors have to take in when considering what type of field they want their athletes to be on.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different configurations these days. You've got fields that are entirely turf. You have infields that are turf. You have mounds. You have home plates that are turf. You have fields that are what I played on in high school. It was an entirely dirt infield. We didn't have grass in the infield at the time. Now, at the field I played on in high school, we've got a great grass infield, one of the best fields in the area. And, but I think a lot of places are looking at, okay, how do we get all of our dates in? How do we make sure that we have a consistent playing surface? How do we reduce the amount of time that's spent on manicuring the field? Um, and because it does take a lot of time, I think a lot of coaches will tell you that they spend a huge amount of time prepping infields for play, um, before games, after games, in between games, and that kind of comes with the job, right? I mean, you want to have a great playing surface for your team,
Mm-hmm.
and so I know there's a lot of uncompensated time for baseball coaches trying to maintain fields.
Yeah.
And that does probably take away from instructional time as well, and so that can be a problem. But you know, we at Heelan we're fortunate where we're sharing a field with Briar Cliff, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a turf infield there, and it's a beautiful field. They've made a lot of improvements to that field in recent years, and it's but we don't have lights, so we're starting earlier, and finishing earlier, which in some cases that's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? Get home early, um, but I think that it can be maybe an advantage at times if you're a turf team. The field plays a little bit faster than what a natural surface might play, and if you're used to playing on turf, there might be a little bit of an advantage over a team that's not. But that being said, you go on the road and you go to a natural surface, you got to be ready to go.
Yeah.
So I don't think in the grand scheme of things it gives too much of an advantage, because you have true hops coming off that turf and so on, you know almost 10 times out of 10. But it's certainly nice to play on.
Mm-hmm.
It's but that being said, in the postseason we played on a natural surface. A couple games at Lewis and Clark, and then a game at Sioux City West, in the sub-state championship, and then we played on a natural surface at Colonel's ballpark. So um, I know that for some that's a revenue source. I've heard that,
Mm-hmm.
but as more teams go to these turf surfaces, that's going to be less and less of an option, right? Unless you're allowing youth teams to come on, because not every youth program is going to have access to turf. But I will say, there were numerous times this past season where we got games in when other teams didn't, because the storms had gone past and we didn't have water sitting on the infield. And games got moved to our field because the opponent's field in Sioux City was not playable.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to get the games in, right? That's
Yeah.
important. So at any rate, obviously pluses and minuses. Um, and I think when you look at college fields, there's some teams are. You look at Iowa Central, that's turf from home plate to the wall
Yep.
in Fort Dodge. Beautiful field. It's but there is something to be said for natural grass. Don't make don't think that I'm advocating for turf everywhere, but it is expensive, and there is maintenance with turf.
Yep. Yeah. And that's one of the things too is turf is not you just get it and leave it. There are things that go into it, and yeah, one of the things that is worth noting here, and I know it's a much more of a rarity than a rain out is going to happen, but I gotta say I love Dwayne Banks Field, but I realized something before the state tournament took place there, and I realized it's really hot in July at Dwayne Banks Field on that turf because that thing cooks. And even when we were sitting there at 8 o'clock at night, you still felt heat rising from that turf. And so it, again, I think all turf, turf is turf, but, fields are different, right? So I know fields are different, different things will happen, but I also wanted to. I also really liked everything you brought up. There is that there's pros and cons to it all, and in the end, I mean, you only have 20 some odd dates. They've reduced the date count in which that teams and programs have, and so I think that's a big factor now, maybe a pushing factor because you don't have to worry. Like you said, wait out the storm, play the game. Instead of you have to wait out and hopefully after an hour you can make it playable. So I agree with that. That I think in the lens of Iowa high school, it's a little bit different, right? And college, you know, there's probably more revenue sources for that to happen. Obviously, Major League Baseball, that there's money in that, right? So we understand that and how all that works. But yeah, it's just interesting how turf has kind of evolved and changed here. And again, I think it's when you get crunched on dates and times it really does matter, and you get teams like I know Newton, Oskaloosa, I believe. You mentioned Sioux City, Heelan there. All these teams, West Liberty, they have these turf fields. Southeast Polk here in central Iowa. So it goes a long way. It matters in the end. I think what reigns supreme here is you get the games in instead of having to fight the schedule and move things around or lose a date. I know that there are just some teams, especially 1A and 2A, that it really hurts when you lose one date. So yeah, that goes along. So I do like your point. And again, I'm with you. I'm not an advocate either way. It's just very interesting, and we want to get your take on it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Dip them in the comments if you can. Your thoughts on where you reside, turf or natural grass, a Frankenstein combination. What are you thinking? So, a lot.
Another thing that I should probably mention.
Yeah.
It's also, and this could be even a bigger benefit than getting all your games in, is the fact that you have a turf. If you have a turf infield, you can still be out there on a day when you had rain. You can practice still on
Yes.
that, and practice, obviously at any level, practice time is huge, and it as the season goes on, every day that you can get practice in and work on those little things that need worked on in season, that's huge. Also in the spring, the weather's always iffy, so as you're prepping for the season, it helps to have that turf where you can actually be outside doing things even if you don't have optimal weather, because the surface is playable. And I think that really does offer an advantage to a team that has a turf field. Is it's not just the playing dates, but it's also the practice dates and the practice times. And there's less time of, well, it's raining, so all we can do is be inside and hit. If you
And
get a window
I agree
where
with
the
that.
rain's
Yeah.
not coming down, you're out there working.
Exactly. That's a perfect point. You still get the playing time, still get the practice time. It's all there, and so yeah, that's a really good point because it does matter, and I think as much as you or I may be a fan of natural grass, there's just something that's not offered there that again turf does have that advantage of. But again, we'll get into more of that as we go down the road here. Again, this prospect planner once again brought to you by RDA Financial. Make sure to check out what they do and across the community. That's a big thing. I love what they do. And Chad, now I want to move on and take a little bit of a twist here. Again, our normal prospect planner talks us through ways, tips, tricks, advice, help that helps the recruiting process, right? And part of that goes far beyond just hey, talking to coaches, hey, get in front of them, letting them see you, but what's the dirty work behind it? And so um, I did want to take it from you know right after the state tournament. You guys, I know a lot of Heelan players just took the time to kind of relax and kind of take a week. There was that dead week, or there was that, ultimately, and a lot of people did take that. I want to get your take again, starting from there. I know it's different. I know that for everybody it's different, but I wanted to start there quickly and talk about, the a buffer period. I know that a lot of people want to get into it, and sometimes if you're lucky enough, like Heelan was and North Polk was, you're all the way at the final game of the season, while others have been in club ball atmospheres already. Uh, what kind of take us through your thoughts? I know that you and your family decided, hey, let's take a vacation. Let's take a little bit of a break here. Take us through that and the dynamics behind that, because I know not everybody chooses to go the route like that. Not everybody. I know everybody's so different, so I know this is kind of a loaded thing here, but this is why I just wanted your perspective on after the state tournament, the route that you guys went.
Yeah, so in our household, um, we had some downtime, and I think that my boys needed that. I know some others did the same thing. Uh, it was in the back of their mind that, especially my older son, who's often playing college ball now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, okay, soon enough, I'm going to have to report to school. He had about a 3-week window there in between being done with the state tournament and going off and reporting to campus, 3.5 weeks or so. And, so that made for a really short summer break. So he chose to take a break. And I didn't blame him. I thought, okay, you just finished catching 47 games, I think, is where he ended up, 46 games, something like that. I guess he didn't catch all of them, but, over 40 games throughout the season. And, your body needs some recovery time.
Sure does.
And that goes for the pitchers, position players as well. You might have been playing through some nagging stuff, and recovery is important. And you just can't keep going and going and going. Your body is going to wear down. It doesn't matter who you are. We're human. Bodies don't hold up. You lose muscle mass, and injuries happen, and things like that. So
Yep.
downtime's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Now, where are we at now, right? So fall ball has started up. Uh, our kids have one tournament in already. We're about to have tournament number 2 here this weekend. We've got 4 more to go after that. And, it's just good time to hone those skills and keep going. Get 15 games or so in, maybe 20 games in here in the fall while we still have some weather to work with. I know some showcases are going on as well. I think there's a JUCO Route 1 in Iowa Western this weekend. This will probably air after that. So when I say this weekend, I mean Labor Day weekend.
Yep. Yep.
And so those things are going on, and all you got to do, just it seems like there's a lot of information flowing on Twitter from PBR, from Perfect Game, from JUCO route. Um, Different programs have camps and have showcases going on, and you just got to keep your ear to the ground, ask around, talk to people, especially your peers. If you know of somebody who is trying to make it to that college level, you got to be talking with them and saying, "Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Are you playing on a club team this fall? Are you going to some showcases? What's you know what what's out there, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's all part of the research process. Just getting that network built. And if you're a freshman or a sophomore and you haven't been approached yet for recruiting, you just got to keep building that network, and playing some fall baseball tournaments is helpful with that. Playing with other kids from other schools is very helpful with that. And I think you build a lot of camaraderie because a lot of times you're on a team with kids that you're playing against in the regular season. And I think that makes those games more fun because you know each other, you're friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's really good. And one of my mottos is there's enough success to go around for everybody, right? Now, you guys named your Iowa um,
Yeah.
baseball players of the year at every level, and that's great and wonderful, and good kudos to those four guys, and also the nominees. That's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. Um, but there's a lot of other successful guys behind them. It's not easy to boil all these baseball players down to four, right? And you can cut it a million different ways. It's not easy.
That's
But
true.
there's a lot of successful baseball players who have received a lot of postseason awards, and that's wonderful. You just keep working at it.
Yeah.
If you didn't hit your goal this year, keep working toward your goal. You know,
Yeah.
and that's all part of what this fall ball experience is. Whether you're playing in a local league and just trying to get better and get some more reps in, or you're being a little more serious about it and doing club baseball in the fall and traveling to tournaments across the state or outside of the state, however you're doing it. But that's really, if you're an eighth grader or a freshman and you haven't found a club team yet where you can play baseball in the fall, and you want to move on to the college ranks sometime, or find out whether or not you could potentially play in the college ranks, it's not a bad idea to find a club team and participate in some fall baseball.
Yeah.
But um,
Yeah.
that's
I
where
agree with
that's where
that.
I'm at.
Yeah. I think that's great. Great idea. And I think that you need to get out there and do something. And it's not always, I think too many people look at it and say, well, that means a whole lot more dedication. And I know that so many of those coaches are willing to, say, hey, come when you can, come when you are able to, and kind of work with you, right? It's not a everyday thing. And I know that there are athletes that have done a lot of different things. Have done other sports while doing some club baseball on the side. It's just where you can put your time. You have to just strategize it out, like you were saying earlier. And so, I did want to go ahead and just briefly here. I know we only got a handful of minutes here, but I did want to go ahead to briefly here, Chad, and just talk about kind of the route you take, if you're going these tournaments, right, versus a showcase, there's a different attack, I would assume, on how you approach each avenue, how you go about it. I know in the end, it's not the regular season. It's a little bit different of how you kind of scope it. But in the end, I think it's well worth it to note that showcases and tournaments are not created equal.
Right. So your local tournaments probably aren't going to have as much social media awareness wrapped around them That's where you're going to have to do some things on your own, such as take video, and hopefully you have a club team that maybe will tweet out a hit or tweet out different things that have maybe happened over the weekend to help out with that awareness. Um, I think from a standpoint of my experience or our family experience last year, there were quite a few more um, opportunities where things got tweeted out during perfect game tournaments as opposed to PBR tournaments. I think PBR, they do tweet and they are paying attention to what's going on in the games. I think that would be something. If I were to critique things, I would say PBR probably could step up their game a bit there. Um, but
Yep.
those are great opportunities. Um, One other thing that I noticed last year was there were players of the tournament awards through Perfect Game, and then there was preseason All American awards that came out, all region teams, things like that, um, that came out from Perfect Game uh, prior to the high school season starting up in the spring. And so that was kind of neat to see that they're doing that. And so there's some exposure there. Um, Now, that's a longer haul for us on the west coast here of Iowa, getting over to Marion to play in perfect game tournaments. PBR is primarily Des Moines area, but they do get over further east as well, I think. But those are some things that stood out to me from last year in the fall
Mhm.
when we made the choice in our family to participate in club activities in the fall as opposed to local uh, stuff. And that's what stood out to me
Yeah.
between the two organizations, PBR and uh,
Okay.
Perfect Game.
Yeah. I like that, and it's worth noting that. And again, we're not we're not knocking anybody here. It certainly is. It's something where are you at, right? And as Chad has mentioned, where are you at in your progression, your development here? Because whether we like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, social media is a big influence on how things operate, how things work. Both programs, and even like we mentioned, JUCO route, they do a great job of that as well. And other avenues that make that happen. So overall, really fun, great. It's really beneficial. But yeah, if you're gonna go club, you mentioned there's a lot of different awards. It's more of a team oriented thing, whereas showcase, you're really, I think, pinpricking little things. You're looking at specific aspects of your game. The pull down from the outfield. Your pop time from behind the plate. You're looking at different things. Whereas I think that as you were getting to the club scene, and however it gets portrayed out to others. The club scene is more of how do you put it all together? How are you putting it all together in there? And yes, there are tournaments that both put on, as Chad mentioned, that from perfect game to PBR. There's tournaments, so your chance to do a lot of that, and I think it's well worth it doing the indoor leagues versus outdoor leagues, trying a lot of it. Again, you can dip your hand a little or dip your hand a lot, but however you want to digest that, I think it's very, like Chad said, it's very valuable because it's just different exposure. That it's just different exposure how to do it. So again, uh, I urge everybody to also check out Rockfin and right here on YouTube, where you can catch all the different conversations, including the ones that we've had on really kind of diving deeper into that topic of what
Yeah.
what you're getting at with what and what you should be looking at for. But I think that Chad, as we start to wind down here, I think it is important to note that how you operate is how you look at it is different. And again, I know, Chet, that there are a ton of things that go on here, and I know that once you get to this stage, it's different. I mean, you're in the, like you said, in the swing of fall ball, and it's also just important that you stay consistent with it. But in the end, getting out there, I think, is kind of the big thing. It's just get out there, right? It's get out there and do something.
Yeah, it's bonus baseball here in Iowa, and you're going to get roughly 6 to 8 weeks of it, and you're playing a limited amount of games versus regular season high school, just on the weekends. And if you're willing to give up some weekends for baseball, that's not a bad thing.
Not at all.
Uh, and I think the other thing too, when you think about club baseball in the fall, is you do boil down these high school teams, and you have guys that are playing that want to focus on baseball, that baseball is super important to them.
Yep.
And they're not necessarily doing it to represent their school. They're not necessarily doing it because their buddies are doing it. They're there because they have an end goal in mind, probably 9 times out of 10, which is, I would like to take my baseball life to the next level beyond high school. And so you do see a lot of outstanding ball players play in these clubs in the fall. And it's a really good test for a ball player, um, to see where they stand and what they need to work on, uh, because sometimes you don't get the same level of competition depending upon where you're playing and what your competition is during the high school season.
Yeah.
You can really gauge yourself when you get into the fall, and hey, I'm facing a kid that's throwing mid 80s, and I only saw one kid like that all year, right? Because that can happen.
Yep. Yeah. How you again, how you address it is important, and you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a lot. It varies up, and again, I think it's well worth, as I'm sure we talked with. Got the chance to talk with Jeff Lefevre, and I really, really hope everyone gets to go back and enjoy that conversation again. But it's he said he was more than willing to dive as deep personally with these players as they needed to be, right? Because everyone's at a different spot. What do they need to work on? So it's not going out there like in the high school season and your main goal is to win the games. In this, your main goal is player improvement. And along with that, I loved what he said. Along with that, if you focus on player improvement, wins, not every time, but wins will generally come with it. If you're improving, you're getting better, then the product on the field is better. So how you got to improve yourself, and that will improve the product, and then turn the product will be a winning product. So I think that was really fun, and again, a interview that you can go ahead and catch on our an earlier edition, I should say, of the Prospect Planner
Right.
piece.
Yeah, I thought Jeff did a great job, and thanks to him again for coming on. I think we might have to have him on here again at some point, maybe after the fall baseball season concludes, and just kind of do a recap of that, and the positives and the negatives that he saw as he went through, organizing. I don't know how many teams he's working with right now, but it might be I know it's at least 4, but it might be
Yeah.
more than that. So he's super busy right now, and so we'll have to hit him up later on. But I do, as we close up here, I do want to mention that we've got an Iowa head coach and his son that we're trying to work out coming on here very soon. potentially our next episode. And his son went to Driveline Baseball in Seattle this off season after he finished up at his junior college. And really excited to talk to those two so we can hear about Driveline. For those of you out there that haven't heard about Driveline, this is there's a couple of baseball academies in the United States, and these are really nationally renowned academies that have worked with many major league ball players, and it's really um, uh, numbers or analytics driven and really new age um, aspect, and but also mixing the old school hitting and pitching techniques as well. So really excited to get their perspective on Driveline. I think that they saw some results, and so I want to hear about those, and I'm sure all of you will as well. And it's just one way to take your baseball game to the next level. I know that sounds like a Driveline commercial. I don't have any affiliation with Driveline, just for the record. I've only seen videos. I've only seen YouTube videos. I've only looked at their website. So I got no skin in the game here, aside from trying to help people make their sons and their daughters better ball players.
Yeah, amen. And I think I hope that's been very evident, ladies and gentlemen, that Chad and myself are all about with this just truly ideas and the different ways to move forward, because it's so much different now than it was 5-10 years ago, and we're in it together, and hopefully there's power in numbers. We can all get together and comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and just kind of make it a community about it. But yeah, make sure to tune in the next couple weeks. We'll have some really big things going on within the prospect planner piece. But beyond that, here a couple shout outs for Yen Jake Miller out of Marion. Congrats. He recently committed here to Justin Schulte in Southeastern. So another big example of a guy that really put a lot of time and effort in off-season work, including these types of programs, made it happen. And that's one of the top programs JUCO-wise in the country. So make sure to just check that out, get out there, and hey, we're going to have a lot of great stories along the way. But Chad, man, appreciate it. Always jealous of the card room. I try and sport it with my Sandlot poster here. So, we volley back and forth, but in the end, the card room wins. So appreciate it from the card room.
Yeah, you bet. Not a problem. I'm going to have to maybe change my backdrop a little bit, maybe move some boxes around so people can see some variety, or change the camera angle maybe.
There you go.
But I know it changes very subtly, but
Hey,
know,
you got to do what you got to do, right? Subtle changes can be big.
Someday we'll get a tour.
There you go. Perfect. Well, hey, Chad, thanks again from Chad from RDA Financial. And thanks to you, everybody, for tuning in. And until we see each other next time, you can say it with me. Stay safe on the base paths. Thanks again, and take care.